You guys are live.
Good afternoon. This is the Delaware County Interactive Gaming Revenue Authority meeting for June 20th, 2024. Sorry, we're running a few minutes late. I call this meeting to order. Please join me in rise for such a pledge of allegiance. Imaginary flag, pull it up on your cell phone. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. This time I'll ask our secretary, Ron Evans, to do a roll call.
Wow. See, our solicitor Frank is here, and Andrew's here, Francis is here. Our assistant, or chairman's here, our assistant chairman's here.
Gang's all here.
Thank you. And we have some guests here today. Would you like to introduce yourself so they can hear you?
Is the speaker here today?
Yeah, it's fine.
I'm Yasin from Vision Technologies, and I was assisting on the tech end for their application grant.
And I'm Jeff Kowalczyk. I'm a partner with Barbecue Thornton and Company, the authority's independent financial auditor, and I'm here to present the results of our audit for the year ended December 31st, 2023.
All of you should have, thank you. All of you should have received the agenda. It was posted on our website on Tuesday, and the members of the authority received it in advance. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
Any questions or comments concerning the agenda? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? The agenda is approved. This time we'll open it up to any public comment concerning the agenda. All of you should have received, the authority members should have received the minutes of the May 2024 December meeting from our secretary, Ron Evans. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? The minutes are approved. At this time, I will turn it over to our treasurer for the treasurer's report.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. All right, so I'm going to brief for the month of May. Our statement beginning balance was $311,891.26. $30,238.90 for checks cleared. We had credits totaling $287,801.85. We include a deposit of $1,000 that I believe that was a return.
Yes, yes.
There was a $24.19 credit for interest, and we got our $286,777.66 deposit for our food. That left our ending balance, statement ending balance at $569,454.28. Now, I did have the intention of printing an up-to-date finances out of QuickBooks so that you guys can see that we did. Paul and I did go open up the account for the money market, and we did transfer the $345,000. I had intended on doing that, but I swore. But that's my part for the financials. Paul, I believe it's appropriate now to turn it over to Barbecue Thornton so that we can brief the.
You can make a motion to approve the June 2024 treasurer's report.
So I make a motion to approve the June 2024 treasury report.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carried. Yeah, let's turn it over and then you can make the motion to.
If you want to go over your audit report, and then what's for that job.
Sure.
And any questions about that we have?
Absolutely. All right, thanks so much for having me up here. As I said, my name is Jeff Kowalczyk. I'm a partner with Barbecue Thornton and Company. And I'm delighted to be here presenting the audit results.
Thank you for coming so.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Happy to do it. So I'm pleased to let you know that we're issuing an unmodified, also known as a clean opinion on the financial statements, which means that as a result of our testing, which was a combination of control and transaction process testing, we found these financial statements to be fairly presented in all material respects. The numbers should be consistent with your internal records, except that in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States, we reflect revenues based on when they're earned, not necessarily when the funds are received. So for instance, the fourth quarter 2023 distribution from the state doesn't arrive until after year end, but we accrue it back to the prior year because that's when essentially the revenues were generated that would be this year was a little different. Obviously, you had transition in the treasurer department. So I know we had to work through a couple things to make sure we were getting the right reports, but we were able to get everything requested. And we were pleased with the documentation that we were provided. From a financial perspective, I think you see this is another year where your revenues continue to increase and provide a lot more opportunity to provide grants to the community. I am happy to go over. I didn't have a ton of time to prepare, so I apologize. I don't have quite as much feel as normal, but I would be delighted to answer any questions.
I had a few.
Yeah.
Starting on page 3, well, first of all, we're not required to submit a 99B. We're not about
That is correct.
because we're an authority, not a fund. On page 3, when you refer to the required supplementary information,
Yes.
can you talk a little bit about that? I wasn't, if we're required to submit something, what is it that we didn't submit?
Great question. So the Government Accounting Standards Board created sort of a basic financial statement document concept that includes not just the core financial statements and footnotes, but also a narrative discussion of the year-to-year changes in the authority's results and financial standing. A lot of municipal and other authorities in Pennsylvania don't prepare one because there's not like community users in the same way that there are for other municipal governments. And in your case, the financial numbers sort of speak for themselves. There isn't really a compelling, a lot of people talk about, here's the upcoming changes to taxes, here's what this year's changes did here, or, things like that. So the authority hasn't historically presented an MD&A. There's nothing that says you can't present one if you wanted to. If you don't present one, we just have to put a paragraph in here saying, technically, Gatsby says this, it's not here. This is compliant for everything Pennsylvania requires.
Okay, I just wanted to understand that.
Yes.
And then on the next page, I was confused by the phrase grants receivable. We don't really receive grants. We receive, the grants receivable refer to the commitment
Right.
received, the 257,000. Isn't it really just what it's not really a grant. Is it?
It would be revenues for our perspective.
Right,
Well,
yeah.
there's
so that-
revenue, and if the receivable is the correct phrase, but just the word grant, I thought grant sort of threw me off.
Sure. Yeah, I think we use the phrase grants because on the following page, which is the program revenues report,
Yeah.
the various categories that Gatsby has set up are charges for service, operating grants and contributions, and capital grants and contributions. We could theoretically change it to something like, we could borrow the language from later in the document and say interactive gaming tax revenues receivable.
I would, yes, I would agree.
Well,
Because they could conceivably receive a grant.
let me ask a question first. Is this, oh no, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
That will not change the timeline for getting.
Well, I want to ask this too.
Okay,
Was that the terminology that we had in the last year's audit?
we've historically used grants on this page as the terminology.
Okay.
I don't think
So,
it will matter if you want to put a note in to say we changed it, but I think we need to do it correctly going forward. I should have caught it last year.
That's okay.
And for what it's worth, statute actually has a unique term of local share.
Should we
Well,
use
let's
that?
call it the local share receivable.
We should definitely use that.
Thank you, Fred.
Try it out. The only. Trying to think through the logistics of getting a final today. If we change it there, we try to change, I'm not sure if then we have to change the notes as well, because this, we. Stop it. Yeah. No, we do use local share funds, so we could, okay. We can use local share. And in the notes we capitalize. Local share receivable. Which is an operating branch contribution buffer, yeah. Second. And then we say local share revenue. On page 8.
And the only other question I had was at the bottom of page 11, when you refer to, you're talking about different kinds of fund equity. When you refer to the board, i.e. us, being the highest level of decision-making authority for the authority, where the county council actually has to approve, but are you saying that within the authority we're the highest level,
Correct.
even though the county council has to ultimately approve?
That's correct. It's weird the way that reality butts up against the categorization in terms used in the government accounting standards language.
I get it.
That's interesting. That's a great.
Well, just when I saw highest form, I thought, oh, wait a minute, county council has to approve our grants. But if you're saying this is the GASB language that we're required to use, and as long as we all understand the council, yeah, I'm fine.
Sure, sort of related follow-up, just on the first page, a component unit of Delaware County.
Yes.
So, and I don't even know if this might be even more for the solicitor than the auditor, but both of you in your areas of focus, talk to me about that. I mean, why, you said you were our independent
Right.
auditor.
Yeah.
So do you also audit the counties?
We do not. So the way that the county audit works is there are, I think it's about 20 different governmental entities that are considered component units of Delaware County, where they have an independent board structure, but for various reasons, either because the county selects the board or has certain financial controls over the other entity, they're considered financially interrelated with the county government to the point that the county government needs to reflect their financial activity on the county statements.
So the controller actually sees this.
Correct.
Right, that's sort of where I was. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And it rolls up in
It rolls up as, so the way they, it gets weird quite quick. There's two different types of component units. There are discretely presented and non-discretely presented. So if it's a discretely presented, it's on the face of the financial statements, but there's a separate column. But then it combines all the discrete component units. So it'll be like, this other column is the SIGRA and the Solid Waste Authority and the library system and this and this. So it's frankly useless. This is a public meeting. No, it can get convoluted really quick, but the idea is when someone's looking at the county statement, they want to get a feel for what does the county have control over as a whole. And obviously, the SIGRA financially a small component of the county, but it is an area that it is a component. So that's.
Did you want to, Andrew, do this for change?
Yeah, so just the wording for the commitment, back to what Francis originally brought up. What you're saying, I understand, and that's so my recommendation was that we should change the wording, because it says the board is the highest level of decision-making authority for the.
So
You should change that
in the authority.
Or within?
or within. because we're not the highest level.
Makes sense.
So can I move adoption of the audit, or I guess Andrew, you have to.
I have another question.
Oh,
Also waiting for.
good. We can have a motion on the floor in a second, and then you ask your question.
But we kind of moved to questions first. I guess my question was, can you tell me what documents were requested that you didn't receive?
The only,
Documents that we don't prepare, right?
well, at this point, the only thing we're waiting on is the signed representation letter.
Which I have to do.
Yeah, so no, it was just, I know there was timing, because I know, Andrew, you were working on getting the various reports, and making sure that everything was tied out. So we ultimately received everything.
So you have minutes and.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And bank statement.
Invoices, bank statements.
So it is a motion, right, that I'm about to make. Do I need is the motion need to be amended?
Well,
right?
no, because I think it's as prepared by Marvin Thornton and as presented at the meeting.
Right, but we want to make those two changes.
When I think he's presenting at the meeting, those changes.
Okay, so.
Well, I'll defer to our solicitor.
He is correct.
So we're on,
So your concerns are covered by the motion that you're making.
Good. Okay.
As presented at the meeting.
right,
So the motion that's in the agenda, right?
because we presented all of the changes. Okay.
And adopted.
So I make a motion to approve and accept the FY 2023 audit as prepared by Barbara King Thornton and Company as presented.
Second.
Any additional questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carried.
Next motion, I make a motion to authorize the chair to execute the representation letter as represented. Presented.
Any questions or comments?
I have it here.
You have,
We,
I have it, but I don't have the third page with my signature, so I will sign it.
I created a letter. Just so you
Okay.
have it. For what it's worth, the distinguished finalization of our audit is holding up the entire county's audit in all this 19 other. And
Wow.
so there,
We're like a little mosquito. Tiny.
Because that's the timing of this meeting.
Right.
Okay, and we didn't have the time to do a special.
talking about. I sent numerous copies down to the city that you want to share with the board back, because I'm not sure they saw the letter.
I think I shared it.
Yeah.
I wonder.
Yeah, that's all
Danielle,
I-
do you want that?
Francis can see our letters.
Including page 3.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carried. Can I sign this?
Sign it now.
Sign it now.
Yeah, because then you could give it to Jeff.
Yeah, technically,
Oh,
I
you need it.
can't really tell, but I will scan you a copy of it, so that you have it. A copy of your records as well.
I'm sure Jeff really wants to stay for the rest of the meeting.
Just like all of this. will be good.
Lucky he lives 5
Well, he
minutes.
don't have to sign one.
Yeah, he's gonna scan it. So.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize.
Well, if you want to sign a
No,
motion, then I
no,
don't
no,
need
no.
to. Okay.
No, it's not.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Take care.
Okay, next, I make a motion. Next, I make a motion to approve payment of Spirit invoice Delta Charlie Golf Alpha -5, $263.15 advertisement for 2024 December emergency services 3.
Second. Any questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carried.
Lastly, I make a motion to approve reimbursement payment to Stephen Roots for $1,023.54 for accounting software subscription and annual domain name / hosting fees, a subtotal of $964.60 and $58.94 respectively, totaling again $1,023.54.
Second. Any questions or comments?
But he's been paying stuff out of pocket.
And I have all the breakdown, I can send that to you, but I went through it with a line two code, and then he got back to me and said those annual ones were ours, but the monthly ones were not. So we're straight. We just have to figure out a way to switch it over, move everything over, and we should probably talk about maybe consolidating it.
Yeah.
So we have, we have.
Every-
Think so.
Yeah, just get it right now. I was able to switch over everything to have access, email, and everything like that, but I wasn't able to switch to financials.
I think the email, the web domain, and the. I don't know if it's the hosting is under. So we're gonna have to work on it.
Yeah.
And at least temporarily move it over to us and then make a final decision. Do it more spectrum. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion carried. Anything else? Okay. I'll just make a comment. I don't know if there's an answer. We do have an authorization. We did vote to authorize the treasurer to make payments of up to $250 on an ongoing basis without having to come to the, to put on the agenda. I guess it's best practices for even vendors that we have contracts with that are over 250 to make those motions on the agenda. I don't know if there's a way that we could do it retroactively, like some other places do. But I'll let the solicitor comment on that.
But you're saying we want to pay our vendors as quickly as we can.
Correct.
Sometimes there's a delay because of.
You have to wait till every, they get approval, then process the check. So sometime in that 30, like we received the net 30 yesterday, it gave the time to process it. Right? By the time we come to the next meeting, like, right.
And they incur some charges.
Well, in the case of an existing contract where we've approved a contract with a payment schedule at a public meeting, doesn't that public approval?
If not, do that.
Yeah.
What we're really talking about, well, first of all, I do believe that even if there is an existing contract set up where invoices are then sent later, those invoices still have to be approved by the board. So there's no way around that. And what we're really talking about is, can we find some emergency that says the 24-hour rule on the agenda doesn't apply? Well, there are 3 exceptions to where you can avoid the 24-hour rule. And this is one of them. It doesn't absolutely involve the payment of invoices, and it's right in the statute.
And I also think one of the challenges is that the invoices from the vendors may be varied. So for example, we have a contract with you, but the invoices that you send vary from quarter.
And I choose to do it quarterly instead of monthly.
Right.
But whatever it is, it changes. There's no, unless next year you want to talk about a flat fee, we could do that.
No, we don't talk about that. I don't know.
As long as you're not thinking of firing us for being so safe.
All right, so let's move on. So at this time, I'll turn it over to the solicitor. And we also have another guest here, Councilman Christine Ruther.
Yep.
That's our liaison. That's it.
Okay, did you all receive the email from me with the attachment that had to do with the solicitor's opinion about whether the board can amend the bylaws within voting by email? You've all received it, so I killed a few trees unnecessarily. The simple answer is we can't do it. We are subject to the Sunshine Law and the Open Records Act. It does provide for attendance. Like We could be on Zoom, you could actually be on a telephone, but the key is that you are participating in the deliberations. You're not only hearing what others have to say, they're hearing what you have to say. And while nonprofits can do this easily, they are not governed by the Open Records Act of the Sunshine. So I also did a little bit of checking around with some other solicitors who kind of shook their head and said, no, you can't do that. What you see in my memorandum is pretty much taken right from the website of the Open Records Act. All right. It does contain a little caution about emails, though.
Yes.
That, be very careful about what you're putting into that email, because that could be subject to a subpoena. And could be, somebody could allege that there was action being taken. So that's that one. But that is better than what it would do. All right. The other one I had already written an opinion on back on March 16, 2023. I forwarded it again. The other question has to do with, can the Sigler give grants to the county of Delaware? Just thought you'd like to know. Can we do it directly? Well, the question originally arose because the statute has three different items or categories that we can get grants for. And one does say municipal police departments and emergency services. And the first thing that I did was opine that municipal, actually, in municipality, actually includes the county of Delaware. Even though we think of it as, oh, it's the boroughs and the townships and maybe the city of the whatever class. But no, I ran into that years ago. We had a ordinance in media about cell towers, remember how controversial it is. And Media Bureau when I was solicitor, adopted an ordinance that said that cell towers can be put on any municipally owned property. Well, it turned out the courthouse was a municipally owned property because the county of Delaware.
State law defines it.
Yes. Thank you. So anyway, in the March 16, 2023 opinion, said obviously the sheriff's office and the park police and municipal police departments were eligible for grants. The question then came up, well, what about the rest of the county? And in reviewing the statute that created us and funds us, more importantly, there's no limitation on who you can give it to as long as it is for one of the three categories. Now, there is the little wrinkle we have here on this authority that all of our grants have to be approved by county council. And that's fine. I'm sure they can do that. The only question I have really goes back to the county solicitor. Can you appoint and approve grants to yourself? I'm not
We
finding
actually
that.
do it all the time.
Great.
We have to approve grants given to the county by the state, by the.
Right. Okay. So that's the answer on that one. The third one, I really have to get together with Jonathan. I'm not sure what the question is. We are granting the 501c3s as well as to the sponsor organizations.
So currently, under our categories and even of our special grants, all of the recipients have either been a 501c3 organization, a municipality, a municipal police department, all the fire companies are 501c3.
No, they're not actually. They're not. A lot of them are not.
It's a mix.
Okay, I believe the ones that we've funded have either been 501c3 or
For government, or they've been government, but there are some that have never filed for 501c. So, you know.
They predated the 501c3.
I mean, they can get it if they need it.
Right, and then we also have one of our next generation grant, insecurity council, a space for 501c3 or physical, have a physical agent. So there was a question about other community groups that may not have these designations yet, if they would be eligible
churches do not have 501c3.
And a lot of them run food banks. Yeah. I think I may have been the one who asked the question.
Yeah, that's why.
As to why. I asked it at a council meeting when we were approving grants, and I was just saying, why do they have to be the 501c3? Now, I understand from an auditing perspective, and somebody's got to put up some sort of number where you can verify that it's been deposited, whatever. And it may be prudent to have a fiscal sponsor, and that may be a prudent thing to do. But my question is, there are a lot of groups, especially when you're talking about working with young people. The church-run food pantry, and there's always a lot of groups, especially during the summer, that spring up to run youth activities, sports, tournaments, and stuff. And probably these wouldn't be large grants. Somebody might come in and ask for $500 to fund something, because most of the people involved are volunteers. And I guess we end up getting requests for that. And my question is assuming that you and your treasurer and your auditors can get comfortable with whatever the trail is, maybe one person is taking responsibility for it. But, you think about it, like PTOs and stuff, a lot of them don't have 501c3, or some of them do, a lot of them don't. But they are exactly the type of people who might run an after-school chess club, and they need money to pay the school, they need money to pay, some adults who are supervising or whatever. Or just to buy supplies and chessboards, and these are small grants, but are you limiting how you can distribute that money? And I believe in 501c3s. I think they're important. I certainly think for grants of a certain size, they either need to have a fiscal sponsor or they need to have, their own accounting. But I'm particularly concerned that for smaller next generation grants, food security grants could be. A lot of the really good work on the ground is done by a couple of people, 1 or 2 summers get together and do something nice. And this extra money could be helpful, and they're blocked from doing it. So that was the genesis for the question. And I'm fine with either answer. I just wasn't sure, as a municipal authority dispensing funds, you're not subject to the same restrictions that, for example, a private foundation, where you have to give it to a charitable organization or a government, because they need to have the tax exemption for their own purposes. And that was the genesis.
And that's why I generated it.
I don't know the answer. I'm asking. Is a municipal authority that has grant making ability, which you guys are. You are not a foundation.
No.
You need to be able to document where the money went. You need to be able to get whatever minimal reporting you require for some of these small grants. But do you need a 501c3 for government?
Or fiscal sponsor.
No, and I don't think we've ever said that is a requirement.
Well, actually, it came up at our meeting, because you said
Right, well, I
you didn't
didn't-
make a grant because you're.
Was I at that meeting?
It was a council meeting where
Oh,
Mr.
I'm
Johnson,
You,
Johnson
I
was,
think you might have misspoke. We've never said you have to be a 501c3 in order to receive a grant. We've looked very carefully at, is this an organization that's been around? Are they doing good work? Is it,
basically, are they known and reputable, sort of?
yeah,
which you
but
should be asked.
it's on a case by case basis, really, is the point. Whether or not we would give a grant to a government entity, I think, again, sort of case by case, and it would be up to the board.
Every time you give it to a municipal police department, you're giving it to a government.
That's correct. We know that.
Yeah, and I'm just, to me, a government entity, actually, we were looking at like section 170. 170, see, or whatever it is, of the Internal Revenue Code. Churches, governments, they're automatically considered people to whom you can give.
Yeah, the tax deduction.
I get a tax deduction. But my question was really more a question of trying to accommodate
You want to make sure that people were not allowed to have access to this money just because they don't have funds.
Right, and some people shouldn't have a 501(c)(3). Like I said, if you have people who are now, like I said, parents in the school district, we had a group in Chatham. Many years ran a basketball program in South. They got, you know, like there, you might have actually been able to give the money to the municipality who would have spent it however they wanted them to. But there wasn't a 501(c)(3). There was just a group of people who would go to the trouble of organizing a basketball tournament, and it was to try to get kids from all over the township playing basketball in South Media. So South Media kids and South Media Clay kids playing with Storm. And I know it happens in Chester. I know there's groups, places like Gunnold and get together kids to try to keep them active because maybe there's not a summer camp. So, but typically like the municipality, and you would say, well, bring in somebody to vouch for you. Do the municipalities know you? Are you engaged with them? That kind of thing. I mean, you could get that. But my question then is, do you go to the municipality and say, well, we'll make the grant to the municipality, you guys have a pass-through basis? I don't know. That's what I was trying to.
The other
Yes.
aspect, I got a lot of popular things. You need a liability insurance policy.
Well, that's just it. And again,
You
maybe
could
that's
buy a
where,
one-day event or a week event insurance policy.
or you get, if the municipality or the school district will get involved, they could sponsor it and extend their insurance. But, so I mean, I think those things are important. I was just wondering, is having that 501(c)(3) designation the limiter? And it sounds like what I'm hearing you say, Francis, is you've never heard it discussed as a limiter, but maybe some of these other things.
We've certainly discussed it, and we've discussed workarounds, and we try to say yes to almost everything. Really, unless we have a concern about performance, or we know that the organization just isn't capable of carrying out the grant. I mean,
People
it's,
who are coming in and are asking are a little sketchy. I mean, you know, obviously.
well.
Well, I think in the
say
case
that,
of
but-
an existing or a previous 501(c)(3, is their status current? Is their 990 current? We use it as a matter of due diligence for people who are claiming the designation. But I think, to Francis's point, if somebody is just coming as a community organization and not claiming the designation, we don't say, no, you're not welcome.
Okay, well, then there's no real reason
Right,
to
that's
to
fair.
refer this to the solicitor, because it sounds like there isn't,
So, no,
there
I
isn't a
think we're
disagreement
good.
here or a
No,
question really.
Absolutely,
So thank
no
you.
disagreement. Absolutely.
The only thing I'd like to add to that, there is nothing in our statute that funds us that makes that kind of requirement. On the other hand, I could very easily see some state department, somewhere, Department of Revenue, really, who would do an audit to see the people that we are giving this money to, are they actually spending it for emergency services or municipal district, matters of public interest. So that could come down the road, but that may involve them going down the rabbit hole further, saying you gave $1,000 to the XYZ basketball tournament. We want to see if they really spent the money on a basketball. But then you turn to your own auditors. They're very thorough, but they haven't decided to do that for us. And lastly, in the Authorities Act itself, there's nothing that says you can only get grants to 501(c)(3)s.
Okay, well, I think everything that you've discussed is, I agree very fully, you know, you've got to have some reason to think that money is going, I think it's going to go. I just didn't want, because, you know, Francis, I don't know if you agree with me on this, but there's a lot of people who should not be forming organizations.
I agree.
You know, it just becomes a recipe for disaster, and in fact, it would be better to try and hook them up with somebody who could be their bank account or provide the insurance umbrella, whether it's the school district or the municipality or the local firehouse or whoever it is. Or a church who's willing to do it. But that was my question. So, thank you.
That's the end of my report. Other questions?
Thank you.
I actually do have one question that I don't want to dwell on, but I would like to think about going forward, and that is What would we need to do, or is it possible to think about changing the fee of the authority?
They have to direct that. That would require a change of term, right? It has to go to council.
Don't like our name. Legal.
It's
Taylor, private
clients,
clients.
and I suggest
You got this.
No,
It's just saying it out loud.
It's just not right, but all of the Delaware County SPCA still exists, but they trade under the Providence Animal, so it's a.
Well,
Execute that.
I think whatever this is gonna train.
I think it should be the Delaware County Authority.
There is one.
I think I've heard of one.
It's true.
There is no,
I was sort of kidding.
Well, if you wouldn't mind, just like, we need to present a proposal to council to whatever, just give us a little
You
rundown,
want it in writing, sure.
like next meeting.
You have a name in mind?
Not yet, but I want to see how difficult the process is.
Well, seriously, the answer is going to be Delaware County Council has to approve it, so we would have to make the request.
Okay.
Yeah,
fine, fair.
yeah, rather than paying for it. He just told us.
Fair enough.
Any other questions or comments?
No.
Vince, do you have any update on our outsourced services?
No, I mean, I think at this point, we
Everything's
can,
running well.
yeah, everything's running smoothly. We've got them on board, and so, yeah, we can probably do it right with that, agenda item.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Oh, is it just the young man who's doing the work?
Yes, so Yassine is doing the IT work, and I guess I should, make sure the treasurer is comfortable with your interactions with Brinker Simpson.
Yes.
Yeah, so,
That is great. And I'll give him an opportunity to speak.
Oh,
Presentation.
we're not allowed to ask him any questions until public comment.
You can add.
Oh,
Sorry,
we're-
I'll open it up now.
Well, this is the outsourced services update, right, Vince?
oh, fair enough. So this is the right time.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
so, no, it's okay, it's all good. So it will be on the agenda next month, the bill to pay. Okay,
Yes.
is that okay with you? Well, how do you?
We're working on some timing issues between. I kind of let them know when our
Meetings are-
tentative agenda, permanent, final agenda, the timeline.
Okay,
So we're looking straight.
so what is the timeline by when we'll be going online and using, like, the proposals that are gonna be coming in?
Well, the current one, I'll talk about that in a few minutes, but the current grant is on a document that we can access. However, that grant expires June 30th. So ideally, we usually look at them after all. Kind of like what we've been used to. But he did send out a link to that spreadsheet.
Oh, do I have, did I get that? Is it a Google link or was it email with a link from you? An email from you? Okay.
With the spreadsheet, similar to kind of what we've been.
Yeah, and
Oh, nice.
questions and comments are very welcome and appreciated from the authority members who want to be continually improving the application and evaluation process. So additional columns, additional information, more of this, less of that, those comments are very helpful.
And we've been working back and forth with Jane and Brinker for the right columns and the right presentation. So when we're done looking at the grants and essentially after we vote on them in our meeting, and after county council approves them, there's a document that goes to Brinker and they can generate the grant agreements. And then after that, hopefully all of the applicants will provide their ACH information. And once we have their grant agreement, which they are going to email back to us, or they're going to use a Dropbox, then they will facilitate the ACH. So there's a little bugs, but we're smoothing. I think the 4 or 5 of us are really working together for this process to be more efficient. The current one, the next generation grants, we're about to sign a lot of manual checks now because we don't have because they didn't provide us with the ACH information, so we're doing a manual check. But Brinker is going to mail those checks along with the grant letter once they receive the grant. So it's not, I'm not going to be sitting at home all Saturday licking, well, you don't lick stamps anymore, but peeling stamps, writing out addresses, signing letters, folding them, putting the check in and mail.
We're glad to hear that.
Yeah. It'll be great for the new. It got old for you. It'll be much more efficient for the any other questions or comments on the outsources services? All right, new business. I'll give an update on the emergency services grant applicants. We only have about five applicants so far. So I'm going to ask my friend and partner, Vince, if you could send out an email to our legislative partners.
Sure.
And just ask them to disseminate it to their municipalities. That'd be appreciated. And I'll also send something to the
Firefighters or?
fire companies, municipal police.
You know what, we have a situation in Delaware County where the police departments certainly, you could send that out to municipalities, remember. There's like, municipalities that don't have their. But there were 71 fire companies, like the active, not all active. And a number of them don't report to their municipalities. They aren't municipal fire companies, they're volunteer companies. They may cross municipal lines, or they may have a disagreement or something with their municipal leadership. So they're not very close to the municipalities. Your best bet there would be to reach out to Ed Edie, who's the deputy director of county emergency services, and they are in touch on a regular basis with all the active fire companies and with all the active units. They could certainly, I'm sure he'd be more than happy to push out. But as well as all police departments, because they're not. So I would reach out to FDD.
Sure, I can do that.
Push it out.
I mean, the other concern that came up when I did that last time, I mean, in some sense, it was very successful. We got a lot of applications, but the issue that we run into is, I mean, in addition to the issue that Councilor Ruther just pointed out, some of the sort of best organized or most active organizations are not the organizations that have the most need. So the responses that we got were not necessarily from the departments with the most.
But maybe, and again, I leave this up. I did have a question. I mean, this is really at your discretion, but one of the things you might want to consider doing if the dollar number may not allow you to support everybody equally is to ask if Ed could join you for a meeting to talk about especially which active companies that are fighting fires, and serving the public, because some of these are more legacy company. I mean, there's like some companies out there that are more legacy, their membership has aged out, they really haven't recruited, they're a little bit more of a social company. I'm not trying to be, denigrate it in any way, just currently, they're not running with one of the firms. And said, could you help us identify which of the fire companies that are out there that are active, that respond to calls on a fairly regular basis, and are, facing challenges financially. And because we'd like to understand who they are and then figure out the best way to reach out to them to say, we're particularly interested in hearing from you guys. And on that, maybe you're the right person to reach out to them, although it's tough to ask Ed to do it, but you
Well,
could
he can help
probably-
us identify.
then we could reach out
Yeah.
and say you're invited to apply, but I'm just saying he does have information on the fire companies that, and I would just ask that it's not just in the economic justice communities, because some have more support than others, but it's which ones are seeing a lot of service, and could you see them?
Yeah, well, and I guess the question from a strategic standpoint, I think one of the reasons why we hesitate to offer larger grants is we have a concern about being able to give the same amount to everybody. I personally don't have that concern, but it is a concern that I would be comfortable offering larger grants based on need. No, that would be, no, that in some sense, that would not be equal, right? But we would just have to,
But it would be equitable.
well, that's sort of what I'm driving at.
Well, I honestly, I can tell you the county gave, as part of its ARPA, we spent like $7 million or something. Giving $25,000 grants to each of the active fire departments. And the controller, just to sort of check on, there were minimal compliance requirements for that 25,000. They had to submit saying it was replacing revenue that they would have otherwise raised during the pandemic year, so it was ARPA money. And she did just to do some follow-up, one of her internal auditors randomly picked a list of 15, 20 fire companies and said, hey, tell us how you doesn't need to be in detail down to the penny, but tell us how you spend the money, what you spend it on. Only half. So I think if you're gonna give the money out, that presents some issues for the county. Reporting side, but my suggestion is you find out who has the need and what it's for. And I can tell you there was always going to be a fire company in even a reasonably affluent area where, depending on what their deal is for their municipality, paying for a brake job on a big expensive truck falls on the fire company, and they may not have the money to do it. So they have to truck out of service. They only need 5,000 for the brake job, then it's 5,000 now. That's important if it's an active company.
I agree, Christine. I think one of the reasons we don't, I think two things. Number one, I think one of the reasons we don't get a lot of applicants is for department capping at 2,500 unless they're certified or going through the process of certification.
We had, for the police departments, we have that level. For the fire companies, they were all the same.
Which was,
21.
and I think that's why we're not getting, if I'm a firefighter and I'm busy and I have a lot of stuff going on, and I'm only gonna get 2,500, I'm probably not gonna apply. It's not,
But last year, we did get a lot. We did get a lot.
yes, but we did a ton of outreach, and I personally don't think that we should be. I think it's great to reach out to the legislators and maybe, absolutely we should, because we always reached out to his predecessor. But I think the amount of work that you in particular did to try and get these folks to apply, I don't think that's our job. I think we do a certain amount of outreach to let people know that the funds are available. But if they are not interested in applying, they're not interested in applying. We have so many other things that we could be doing with these funds. And that's just I would put the minimum or maximum, I guess it is, up to 5. Reach out to the folks we just talked about and then let the chips fall where they may. But that's my personal.
I honestly feel like if you say you're gonna get the same amount if you apply, you're gonna get a lot of people to figure out if you just send in a not terribly detailed letter, that's $25 a day. If you make it a point so that municipalities and state legislators and we know that there's money available to help. Not necessarily with $2,500 cap, something big comes up. And when that truck is out of service because it needs the 5,000 or 6,000, they know they can apply and maybe not get the whole 6,000, but they might get 5,000. That's worth it, right? And I think you kind of put it on, we will try to meet the need within reason. We're never going to be able to give you more than say 10,000 or 7,500 or whatever each maximum grant is, but it's really to meet a need. It's not to just cover your budget. Now, if somebody says, look, we want to bring in, we want to go pay for some extra training for people to go do follow up. Well, then maybe you can cover, but and even
Or cap it at a certain.
or cap it
We'll
at a
pay
certain-
it for.
Yeah, we'll pay $50 per person that you send. If the training's 150, they can figure out where to come up with the 100.
The other thing we can do is we can keep the fund open all year.
And as they.
As
do,
they
they'll put out
need it,
the
they
message.
come.
But say you
Instead of
gotta come
beating
in-
down the door.
But
to
you have to
get-
say, you've got to come in with a specific, see, this is where I would say, come in with a specific ask.
And then you fund that ask for percentage of it.
Well, that's what we
Yeah.
do. I mean, it's designated stuff.
We have
What we ask for receipt.
It is, but if it's June and I don't have a really big need, then I've gotta figure.
Spend it on.
Yeah, whereas 6 months later, I might have something significant but I don't have the opportunity.
Well, it's been designated much more narrowly. I mean, I think it's evolving here, because we started out Fire Prevention Week, Community Outreach, National Night Out. And so in that way, 2,500 kind of made sense. But expanding to year-round, meet a need, address the
I think you have to
situation.
demonstrate that
That's a
it's a
different-
need that they're responsible for. In other words,
If they don't do it, it's gonna impact their operations. So
right, and that it's not something that they could go back to their municipality on, because everybody's got their own deal with the municipality. Some municipalities pay virtually, I don't understand why, but Parkside pays hundreds of thousands of dollars to its fire company. Nobody else that I know contributes that kind of fire company, but, unless it's a municipal fire company and they're paying for it, but I think if you were to come in and say, and even the municipal fire companies have needs that are off budget. It might be training, it might be something else that they want to do, but I think to say, you gotta come in, you gotta show us that this is something that's on the fire company. That doesn't, you can run it by a BB and say, is there other state money that would pay for this? He says no, then you guys are like, okay, well, we can fund it up at this level.
Here's an idea, and if people are amenable to this, maybe this becomes a motion. Why do we not do any outreach? Let's see what we have budget. Watch what we have. If we want to. And then go back out with a different RFP, with a different dollar amount and saying, all year round, we're willing to accept proposals for specific things. Because we have a significantly larger budget now. That
So now the part of it is that probably do it, right? You're like, hey, I want to make sure that we can actually.
exactly, yeah.
But that was before we started getting.
We had a cap
That's
of
exactly right.
now or a date, whichever came first. Well, I guess we have a cap of now.
We
We've
can,
gone over that a few times for different
Right.
categories. And then we have a date of when these things are coming in, so. Yeah.
they you cap it for the year, but by December 31st, we know we're setting aside this amount of money. And
Just don't want to add stated first come,
Exactly.
first served basis.
So let's hold off on that. Because it is already publicly available because we posted it and
That's right.
even you, which I don't know where the connection is, but there may be some connection. I think the foundation publicized it as well.
Yeah, we put it in our radio or something.
I have to, I have to get to another meeting at 3:30. I just wanted to, since we're talking about emergency jurisprudence, wanted to give you a brief update of what's going on. Since I mentioned it. Obviously, the departure of our former emergency services directors had something of an impact, and I've been frustrated as a council member probably for like the last year with lack of information. We had an update last night at our executive session. The information that I got was particularly frustrating around the radios because there'd been a great deal of negotiation back and forth between council and various stakeholders about what the county was going to pay for versus what municipalities and fire companies, et cetera, was going to pay for, and how people were going to have skin in the game and other things. It's now coming back to us, almost as a fait accompli that we're expecting the county to pay for. I'm not particularly happy about it because certain things that were represented to us as being on the table that have to be picked up by the municipalities to apparently now hold the overall cost. We're stuck paying the radios and the overall cost with no way to recoup it. So, and no consequence if the municipality doesn't chip in and share. So we're a little bit frustrated about that. We're also frustrated by the fact that these issues did not get resolved back when they should have been resolved, which was last fall when I was asking about it because apparently it wasn't on emergency services priority list. And now there is a risk that we're going to have the system up and running for almost 6 months before the radio instruction. So all of this is very aggravating. I hope it gets resolved and I hope that that risk does not come to fruition. But I do want to reiterate that you are going to be getting requests, and maybe to Francis's point about just funding what you get through June 30 and then not doing anything else. This, I think, was just sort of a failure of communication. I was under the impression that the county was paying for radios for police departments, fire departments to go into their vehicles. And that the fire departments would be a limited number going into each of the vehicles, but can't do so. Nature, but they weren't going to get a lot. And then to be police to go into all of their patrol rooms. Well, it turns out that the nomenclature, which was not necessarily explained to us in detail, has us paying for a certain number of body radios for everybody, and the police department side, and not paying for everything on the fire department side, which I absolutely fail to understand, other than the relationship between emergency services and fire companies, which we need to sort out. But I can tell you that at least as far as our police departments are concerned, it now appears that what the police chiefs are being told is that, and the reason they don't have their orders in is because there's misunderstanding about what they had to buy versus what the county was going to pay for, and what we would pay for might be less than what they think. Some of these municipalities are going to have a need for more equipment than we are covering. And they are going to want a place to go. I do not know that the state legislators will be able to come up with money for this. It may come to you. I do not know what the numbers are yet, and I apologize because, as I said, I kind of fired off a rather irritated email last night, so we need to get this sorted, and I need to know what kind of numbers you're talking about. I hope to have that resolved by your meeting next month. I will email it.
I would respectfully ask that it be the consensus of all 5 council members that we yes to support the project. That's not a project I am interested in. funding or that I am interested in us getting involved in unless qualified council members believe that that is appropriate.
With all due respect, Francis, I'll get you 3 council members. 3 will go,
Okay,
not 5. I'll get you 5. But there will be 5.
okay.
Kevin, Matt, and I are 2 of them. I suspect I don't know that they're going to be. There may very well be 5. Because otherwise, they're going to be expecting the county to be involved. And the county is unable to really get involved with it, and you do have emergency services as part of the portfolio of things that can with it. So I can't think of anything that's more related to emergency services than making sure. A great job is important, but making sure. So obviously, I can't compel this board to take a grant priority. And if there's a majority of council who feels strongly that it should be, and this board chooses not to, then our only real authority is to not approve any grants, which I think is unlikely to happen. So at the end of the day, if this board does not agree with council that this is the appropriate place. And I believe, like I said, I'm pretty darn sure I've got 3 votes. I may have 5. That if this board chooses not to prioritize funding radios, so by the way, we're funding maintenance costs for the radios for communities that don't have the same level of affluence as other. I can't compel you to do it. I'm just saying it's been a major need. And my hope is that this board will agree that what I don't have for you though, and I'm very frustrated not to have this, is I expected I was going to go back and look at information that's already been gathered and be able to look at it and tell you sort of what had been identified, what the gaps were that had been identified by the police chiefs, what the county was willing to pay for. They needed the last night's meeting sort of took all that information that I've been running through and to spit back to me. So I don't know. And again, Chris, I can't make you guys do this. I can't. But I am going to tell you, I think that council would like to find a way, make sure that our poorest communities have the same level of connectivity as our wealthiest communities. And we don't have the money.
What was the timing of the student radio system?
Well, that's part of the challenge. Because orders have not gone in. County's put in its order, which again is not the order. Well, I don't know that the county has put in its order, but the order has not gone.
Do you have any idea what the financial burden is?
On each, it's going to depend on the size of the police department. I mean, I think, one question that you could ask is, well, why should a Radnor have to pay for all its radios? Darby should not have to pay for all its radios. I think those are good questions, and I don't know, this kind of gets back to the question you were asking earlier. Should it all be the same amount? Should it be different? I think council was under the impression that council was working under the assumption that the communities that could afford more would get more. The communities that could afford more could only get more if they got help from something. And the question is, where were they going to get the help from? I don't know that I would have sought to see the money come from the secret, but for the fact that your budget, your ability to make grants has exploded beyond what we thought. So, we thought it might be $500,000 a year. I think that's what we had talked about originally. That's your good to see. So.
Thank you for sharing your information and perspectives with us.
Well, I haven't shared any real information yet.
Well, you'll
I
share more
apologize.
information.
I actually met with several people to go through the information, and then we had this meeting last night, and I might as well just run everything I did for a shredder. It's not very happy about it.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for your time.
It's always interesting to hear what you guys are up to. And I just can't say how much I appreciate time all we put into this. It's really, it's a lot.
Thank you.
Of course you get.
All right, let's proceed, because I know a few of you, have to, listed below are remaining next generation grants totaling less than our revised total allocation of $300,000. All grants are subject to county council approval. So I'll ask for a motion to approve a $10,000 grant to neighbor development CDC. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second. Any questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye. Do I have a motion to approve a $5,000 grant to Interborough Sailing Association? Do I have a second? Second. Any questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion carried. Do I have a motion to approve $10,000 grant to CMP Radio? Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Abstain. Opposed, abstain. If you wouldn't mind, does he have to state the reason, or can he just provide a letter to the secretary?
Exactly, a letter to the secretary, why you abstain. Most of the time, the only valid legal issue is that you have direct mention.
So I don't, but I sit on that board. I don't know if it matters.
He doesn't feel comfortable, so
I don't have any financial interest in it whatsoever, but I do.
I will accept the abstain, even though it's contrary to the major reason for abstaining.
His vote gets added to the majority anyway.
Okay.
His vote gets added.
Even though I abstain, it's still gonna count.
Yeah, right.
So is it 4-0 and 1 abstention?
Officially, yes.
And just send an email, right, it goes to the secretary.
Yes, to the secretary.
All right, at this time, we'll open the meeting for any public comments. You're the only member of the public, if you want to say something, but you don't have to.
This very interesting.
Not bad.
It was very interesting.
Could have gotten even more.
At this time, I will open up the meeting for any authority comments. I have nothing to say for this meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Second? Second. Comments? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna
Turn that thing on.
So I have received the finalized approved audit, which I've got to scramble back to my office to get out so the county can finish their.
Oh, you got it via email?
I got it in the email.
Okay.
I was sent to you and
Was it sent to me or was it just?
it was sent to the three of us.